Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here to Sports Time HQ. I'm here today with my great co-host Gary. Keith, not in the building here as of right now. Maybe he'll pop in during the show. But Gary, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. That was definitely an eventful week of football. So I'm just, as always, ready to talk about it.
You want to talk about your Browns?
It's actually a topic I would love to not talk about. I figured that we wouldn't struggle with the Giants at home, let alone lose outright. But I guess I was proved wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think the Giants beat the Browns. But
I'm a Giants fan.
And I got to do the power rankings this week, and now I got to determine whether the Browns are really just that bad.
Yeah, it's like I honestly myself don't know. As a team, we just look like trash, both offense and defense. So it makes no sense to me because first play of the game on offense, Amari Cooper, 25-yard touchdown. Deshaun delivers a dot, and I'm thinking this team is going to win with these today. All of a sudden, right back to the 2016 Browns. So,
I mean, it's no better than my Patriots. Let's be real. The Patriots are just horrendous.
But the thing is, we at least have expectations. You guys don't. So it's like it hurts.
Yeah. You got a point there. You got a point there. You got me there. But there comes a time where the Browns just need to move on from Deshaun Watson, I think. And I think if he continues to struggle this season, they're going to need to find something for next year.
I agree with you. But at the same time, what is moving on? Because there's no way we're going to trade him because no team would ever take on that contract, A. B, we're paying a guy for 2 more years to be our backup. So it's like, I don't know. I agree that we should probably give Jameis a shot just due to the fact that Deshaun has not looked good whatsoever. But, yeah, I don't really know. It's an annual thing for this team to just look so much worse than they're supposed to be.
Well, I think what they need to do here is they need to, if he continues to struggle, obviously, like you said, you can't trade him, but maybe draft a quarterback next year. Like
Ewers is a Cleveland Brown.
Quinn Ewers, he's a really good option coming out of college.
I hope.
He's not an Ohio State guy, is he?
No, he was. He actually committed to Ohio State and went there for his freshman year, got paid the NIL check, and then transferred over to Texas.
So, okay.
Now he's balling at Texas. But
what about Archie Manning?
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Archie Manning stays another year. Ewers, he's only playing right now because Ewers is hurt, and I think once Ewers comes back, he's going to be the starter. He has been for the past 2 years. So I think Archie Manning is going to play now, obviously, until Ewers gets back. I think he's going to stay another year because, I don't think NFL teams are going to draft him based off of 5 games or whatever he's going to play. So
didn't they do that? Well, what quarterback? Who was it? Was it Trey Lance that they did that with? Along those lines.
I'm not sure, but Anthony Richardson kind of got drafted along that. I don't know if you saw the stat, but it was like since high school, like since the end of his high school career, he's only started like 14 total games or something like that, or whatever it was.
Ridiculous.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? He is one of the duds though of the week. I will say that. He is one of the duds.
So far.
Well, let's get into finally what everybody wants to talk about. A recap of week number 3. And we'll start with what do you want to start with? You want to talk about the Raiders or do you want to talk about the Bengals?
I would actually love to start with the Bengals because wow, they made me really mad last night.
They were my lock of the week. They were my lock of the week. I was like, all right, they're 0-2. They can't possibly go 0-3. Jaden Daniels couldn't get in the end zone the past week with the Giants, who I know are terrible. And I was like, it's got to be a lock. But the game was just crazy, and I couldn't even watch it. I had to watch the highlights.
My dilemma with them is that I went into my fantasy week down, 10 or 11 points maybe, and I had Jamar Chase and Burrow going up against Daniels, B-Rob, Kincaid, and Tyler Bass. So I didn't really expect, to win whatsoever. But they at least kept me in it. I mean, Burrow dropped 30, Jamar Chase dropped 30. The only problem I had is not necessarily on them. This defense is abysmal. I mean, this defense.
Oh my God, it was horrendous.
Probably there for the worst in the league. I mean, they held the Commanders to 0 punts. I mean, it wasn't necessarily on Burrow or Chase or Higgins because they all play great. It was the fact that the defense couldn't get a single stop. I mean, when your defense is at best holding them to a field goal, that's pretty bad. So that was my problem.
It was what, since like the 1940s that we've never.
I think
we didn't see a punt.
I actually think in history, it's the first game ever since there was a game featuring no punts or something by both teams.
Can you believe that? I mean, it was a great game. I mean,
if you love offense, then that's your game right there.
It kind of takes me back to what was it? Was it the Rams and Chiefs?
Yeah.
Was that Rams and Chiefs? That was also a really great game to watch.
52-50, whatever.
Oh my God, it was amazing. But I mean, for me, so obviously me being in a foreign country, I got to try and not look at the scores, not look at any tweets, not look at nothing when I wake up. And I woke up today, I said, that's my biggest game that I wanted to watch. Let me check the highlights. And you still get the suspense because you didn't watch it. And I'm like going back and forth. I'm like, Burrow, what's going on here? And then I'm like, defense, hello, where are you? So yeah, it was really good game. Other than that, Bills, Jaguars. Moving on.
I watched the first half. That was about it. I mean, like we've said, we've mentioned this already. The Jaguars are caked. They're done. There's no coming back from this. T-Law is trash. I mean, I don't really know.
T-Law is trash. Is that a hot take you want to take on?
I don't know, but I've said it. I honestly, since he came to the league, I've never been a believer of T-Law except for 1 year. How long has it been in the league? 4 years?
4, 5 years? 4 or 5 years?
I don't even remember, but it was the year after he had Urban Meyer as coach. I thought he was going to be good. I thought he was going to have a breakout season like a lot of people did. That was the only year I felt good about him, and he completely proved me whether you want to say right or wrong, he's not good. So I don't understand why people would ever still have faith in the Jaguars at all. I don't. I've given up on them.
Well, my biggest question now is if Doug Peterson's going to be the guy out, because
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I mean, it doesn't look like Dennis Allen, who we thought might have been the first coach fired. It looks like it's either. I mean, I wouldn't think Bengals. No, I wouldn't think so. But Jaguars, I could see them just moving on, kind of restarting the coaching staff clean. But Lawrence needs to figure something out because I saw a stat that it was so almost identical to Daniel Jones. But there's two different storylines. One is the worst quarterback in the NFL. The other one is a legend in the making.
Right. Yeah. It was the fact that they have such similar stats over the course of their career. Yet one has all this hype and the other one is seen as the worst quarterback in football, which I completely agree with. I mean, why is Trevor Lawrence getting all this hype just because he was the number 1 overall draft pick? I don't know. But they're both really bad. So
overrated. That is my big word for Trevor Lawrence.
Agreed.
Overrated. Back to the Bengals, though, real quick. Trent Brown, right tackle for them, suffering a torn patellar tendon in his right knee. That is a season-ending injury. So just when you think the Bengals season can't go any more wrong, it does. But the one good thing is T. Higgins was out there yesterday.
And he looked good. T. Higgins looked good. I was very happy with it. But yeah, once I saw Trent Brown go down, I honestly knew he was done because he immediately grabbed at that knee and did not get up. So I had a feeling that it was going to be some ACL or ligament tear or whatever it was. So that's definitely a bad blow because as much as the Bengals have tried to repair this offensive line, it hasn't really been that great. So it just, adds more fuel to the fire.
And, of course, going on to now the Raiders, who are having quarterback troubles. Raiders do not rule out a QB change. They already changed in the fourth quarter this past game with Minshew. They moved on to Aidan O'Connell, who we saw replace Minshew, of course, in that fourth quarter loss. But Devontae Adams was shaking his head. Gary, you're a big Devontae Adams. Talk to me about what went through Devontae Adams' head right there.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really understand why the Raiders would do that. I mean, going into yesterday's game, I'm pretty sure Minshew was second in the league in passing yards. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for me with the Raiders is their run game. Absolutely non-existent. I'm looking at both Zamir White and Alexander Mattison, guys that I would love to have one of them on my fantasy team because I feel like both of them have some promise. Yet, via sleeper, I see both of them are on the field at max 40% of the snaps. I think Zamir White yesterday played like 30% of the snaps, and Alexander Mattison played like 44%. So that's 74% of the snaps. Who's on the field the other 25%? Because are they just passing? Are they just going empty set backfield the other 25%? That's not going to work. So I really don't understand what's going on in Las Vegas. I mean, I feel like everybody knew they were going to be bad, but I don't really get it. Minshew obviously is the better candidate. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. I completely feel Devontae Adams' pain, but at the same time, now he's seeing some of the backlash of going to Vegas. Obviously, he didn't want to play with them. He wanted to play with Carr, but now he needs to get out of there.
Do you think there's a possibility of a trade going to New Orleans, maybe?
I don't know, but that would be cool to see. I mean, because
I think there's too much. I think they're just, as much as I would love to also see that happen, Adams maybe having a career again with Carr, but with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, I think the fantasy intake of that would just too many mouths to feed at that point. And I think Shaheed would become irrelevant.
Yeah, I for sure agree with that. It just upsets me because I think people, and I won't even include you in this, but people, I feel like starting to hate on Devontae when he's so clearly still a top 5 wide receiver in this league. Like, it's just not a question. So I would love to see Devontae stay at the top of the game that I know he can, whether it's with Aidan O'Connell or Gardner Minshew throwing in footballs. I don't know. But my take is that it should be Gardner Minshew, and it's not close.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I was also surprised to see Aidan O'Connell out there. Devontae Adams, though, real quick, do we want to talk about his fantasy production this past week? Only 8 points.
Honestly, I don't know what he did last week, but, I mean.
8 points.
Listen, we're only 3 weeks in. What about the last week?
That's
You didn't
true.
want to talk about that one.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't want to talk about that one. Moving on real quick, Brett Favre, he just recently announced that he was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So that's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with the NFL and if they're going to try and limit those concussions and all that. I mean, we've seen it in the past. Now it's this big guy named Brett Favre. It's a sad moment to see. Yeah,
it is sad for sure. I don't really know what route the NFL is going to take, if they do take one at all. But, Brett Favre, obviously one of the greats of the game. So definitely sad to see that the NFL is something that he loved doing so much. Obviously, it was his job for years. Possibly the catalyst for something that could impact him for the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, he lasts for a very long time. Undefeated teams left in the NFL: Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks. 3 teams I think no one would have pictured to be in this conversation. And then Kansas City, obviously won easily, we all thought. Buffalo could have been here, could have not been here, kind of iffy there. But these are the 5 teams left who are undefeated. 75.2% chance of making it to the playoffs now.
First 3 are frauds. That's all I'll say. I mean, come on now.
If only Keith was here to talk about his Seahawks.
Let's be real. Like, I mean, the Seahawks offense, or actually the Seahawks as a team look good. They do. But when I look at who they've played, like, it doesn't scream out like they're a real contender to me. I mean, they played the Pats, who, sorry, Fernando, they're not great.
Don't worry.
They played the Tua-less, who as much as you hate Tua, or as much as one can hate Tua, you have to admit he does glue that team together. I mean, they're a completely different team with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. So that doesn't, alarm me at all. And I at the moment I'm forgetting who else they played. It was Denver week 1, right? I think they played. So yeah, I mean, obviously they just had an explosion against Tampa Bay, but Bo Nix is trash. That entire
Knicks Nation.
He's
not trash, I don't think.
He's bad. He had one Mickey Mouse week, but okay.
We'll see. We'll see. His career's just starting.
Sure. Okay. Well,
you saying Jaden Daniels is a fraud too?
No, I mean Jaden Daniels has played good all 3 weeks. I mean, Bo Nix has looked trash the first 2.
Okay.
But I mean, that's exactly where I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. I mean, they beat the Falcons, who show promise in all their games.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're not like this crazy top 10 or 12 team. And they also played the Broncos in. I'm forgetting the other team that they played, but I'm not really expecting the other teams to just stay there at the top, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could expect maybe after 6 weeks, we'll maybe have 1 or 2 teams left, if that.
Right.
If
I
that.
agree.
As for winless teams, there's only 3 teams that have yet to win. Tennessee, no shocker there. Should maybe the Giants be in the conversation? Yes. Cincinnati, shocker there. And Jacksonville, who, I mean, should be winning at least 1 or 2 games in the past 3 games, but just has not been it. They currently have, those 3 teams, 2.5% chance to make the playoffs this year. And honestly, you could very much say that these teams might go 0-4. They have good chances of going 0-4. So it's another thing to keep in mind, because once you go 0-4, your season's kind of done. Now you're looking at trading key pieces.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans, if you're looking at their playoff percentage, it's probably even lower than 2.5%. The Bengals, I expect to come back a little bit, but who knows? I mean, everybody had them, or for some reason, a lot of analysts had them going to the Super Bowl and even winning it. I never understood that, but that's what a lot of people thought that they would do. So, yeah, I would also agree that the Giants probably, you would think, would be 0-3 as well, but my Giants got the win on Sunday, so let's go.
In Carolina.
Yeah, no, Andy Dalton looked phenomenal.
Ooh.
But then again, the Raiders' defense is just abysmal. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, to touch on your point, if you start 0-4, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's all I got for news and notes. You got anything else?
That sounds good to me. Let's get into the waiver wire.
Just hold on just a second.
Did I skip over something?
It's time for the injury report.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I can't forget the injury report. I mean, so many injuries this past
many.
season.
I mean, it's like, like it's crazy.
Well, I'm going to go down the list of all the injuries that kind of happened in this past week and what's going to go on for week 4 for some of these players. And Gary, you can touch on 1 or 2 of them that you think are the key things to talk about, key players to talk about. Brock Purdy, he is day-to-day with a back soreness. Sam Darnold, he has avoided a serious knee injury. Just a bruise, no damage showed in the MRI. No time is expected to be missed. He is currently leading the NFL in passing touchdowns with 8 passing touchdowns. Who would have thought? Trey McBride, he is currently in concussion protocol. Sam Laporta, day-to-day with an ankle injury. I think that's just a monitor all week kind of thing, see what he practices and if he does. Jordan Love, limited participant in practice, currently day-to-day. Almost played this past week. Malik Levis had to come in, but Jordan Love could be back next week. Justin Herbert re-aggravated his ankle that forced him to leave the game. X-rays were negative, but another thing to monitor this week. Cooper Kupp officially out for week 4 per Sean McVay, the head coach. CMC to Germany. Took a trip to Germany right near me. Should have went out to go see him. He was here over the weekend, saw specialists about his Achilles tendonitis, and he's currently still on IR. George Kittle expected to be back at practice after missing week 3 due to a hamstring injury. And lastly, Austin Eckler, concussion protocol after exiting in the 3rd quarter last night, and you did not see him after that.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love is a cool one to monitor because I feel like people expected him to be out like 6 weeks. I mean, that's at least what I thought, especially at first when he went down. Maybe even more. 6 to 8 was my general thought. So to see him have a chance to play like 4 weeks later is crazy. So I'm glad he's a great player. I love the Packers, and I have him in 2 fantasy leagues, so I would love for him to get healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I drafted him anywhere I could if I had the chance. If it wasn't CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, it was Jordan Love or Baker Mayfield. And to see him come back, I just hope that they're not rushing him too quick where he can get injured again.
Right.
I mean, at that point, it's a lost season at that point, which leads into my key point of Justin Herbert re-aggravating his ankle. They tried so hard to get him to play. He played, and then he re-aggravates it. Obviously, the X-ray showed negative on his ankle, but it's still the point that you got to protect your quarterback. Don't throw your quarterback out there into the wolves and expect him to play the whole game and not injure himself. He is a big liability at that point. So that's something I want to monitor this week because there's a chance that they could sit him, and I hope they do, maybe for 1 week if he struggles in practice this week.
Yeah, and I think it's especially important to keep him healthy because of, I mean, besides the first week, he's played pretty well. Quentin Johnston looks like, 5 times the player what we saw him last year.
Who the heck is this guy?
I'm surprised because, I mean, obviously I'm not going to call him this all-star stud yet, but I, coming out of the draft, thought he was not going to do anything. So if he proves me wrong, I'll be completely happy with that. Right now, looks like Justin Herbert's number 1 guy, so he's got to stay healthy if the Chargers want to do anything this year.
Tell you what, currently the wide receiver 18, back-to-back double-digit points. He's a guy I think only have 1 share of in all of my leagues, and that's a dynasty league because I just don't look at him as a big guy. Now there is a lot of shares of him for me because I picked him up off the waivers, but starting out the season, QJ was not in my mind.
Nope.
Anyone else you want to talk about? Actually, I want to talk about one more guy, CMC. I mean, I think we're coming to a point now as there's no update on his actual injury. It's just him going to specialist and what's happening there. Like, is he going to play this season or is he going to be shut down for the season? And I mean, if he is shut down for the season, I mean, 1, there should be an investigation with San Francisco by reporting it very, very late. And 2, anyone who drafted at the 101 is going to be so disappointed because at that point, your 101 turns into an undrafted, irrelevant player.
Agreed. And if you missed out on Jordan Mason, then you're double screwed because, I mean, at least you got a guy who has performed most of the time to be able to fill CMC's slot. But if you missed out on him and you drafted CMC with a 101, I mean, kiss your money goodbye. I mean, you're pretty cooked at that point. So, I mean, we obviously had to talk about CMC. You can't not. So it's definitely something to keep your eye on. But I feel like a lot of people have been doing that this entire year and haven't really gotten what they wanted. So
unfortunate circumstances for CMC, and hopefully you got the handcuff in Jordan Mason, like Gary said. But if you didn't, that's a brutal loss to your season because running backs are so thin. But let's get into the official waiver wire. Quarterbacks here. I'll start with mine. This guy is a guy who we would have never thought to be on the radar. Instead, he's balling out. I already mentioned he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. What in the world? If you told me that after 3 weeks, Sam Darnold would be leading the NFL in touchdowns, I'd tell you you're crazy.
Yeah.
He has Justin Jefferson. He has Jordan Addison. Whatever. He's not leading the NFL. J.J. McCarthy was going to take the job. He hurt himself. Instead, this guy is balling 23.24 points this past week. He is only 38% owned. And, I mean, this guy is right now the quarterback 4. He's finished as a top 10 quarterback the past 2 weeks. And in the first week against the Giants, he actually still didn't do that bad. Scored 15 plus points and finished as the QB 14. This guy is somehow playing ball, lights out, balls out, everything. Like this guy is so good that the injuries hopefully will not come for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually, like everybody, I'm surprised with how good he's playing. And it's not just like he's force feeding Justin Jefferson, because he's really not. He's spreading the ball out. Jordan Addison's getting love. Johnny Munt caught a touchdown last week. So
Jalen Naylor.
Yeah, Naylor had one too as well. So it's not like he's just, going to his wide receiver one. He's playing like a experienced top level quarterback and distributing the ball very well. So definitely surprising to see.
I just really hope that the injuries do not haunt him, because that is just something that you're just expecting to see. We already saw it. He avoided that serious knee injury. Just Sam Darnold, please don't injure yourself. Yeah. He's my waiver ad of the week for quarterback. Gary, who's your guy? Who are you fielding in this waiver wire store?
Yeah, so my guy's obviously going to be a former Buckeye. Why not? It's a guy that right now, can you say that it's his job? It's going to be tough to take it away from him. It's Mr. Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say he's, balling out, but he's a serviceable quarterback for sure. He's playing good. He's not playing like he's not – obviously the Steelers are 3-0, but had the Steelers lost any of these games, I wouldn't pin the blame on him whatsoever. Last week he had just shy of 20 points. If you're scanning on the waiver wire for a quarterback ad, 20 points a week is perfect for me. So I think I'm going to go with Justin Fields. He obviously has that rushing capability that so many of us loved last year. And the first 2 weeks he showed it. Yesterday, not so much, or Sunday, not so much. He rushed for a 1-yard touchdown, I believe. But besides that, he looks pretty solid.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think that Russell Wilson's inactive, but he's in uniform.
Yeah.
He's got pads on and everything. It's wild to think what's actually going on there. But I like Justin Fields. I like the throw in the waiver store, go get that guy, because you know what? He has been producing, like you said. And until he stops producing, stops winning games, then you need to be worried. But till then, go get him if you need a quarterback. You need someone to fill in Jordan Love for next week. Maybe he's not playing again, or Baker struggles. Now you're worried on if he's going to produce next week, which I don't see that happening. I think he'll still produce. I think he's another guy that you could really go get. Between Sam Darnold and Justin Fields, I think these are the top two, in my opinion, in the waivers.
Agreed.
Of course, Keith isn't with us currently. Hopefully he'll still be able to join us at some point, maybe today. If not, we still obviously want to give you his waiver pick. And his waiver pick is, of course, Aaron Rodgers, who Aaron Rodgers did just face the New England Patriots, which their defense is supposed to be good, but I don't know where they are. But he did finish the QB 10 this past week, finished as a top 12 quarterback past 2 weeks. I think the only issue is he's got a tough road ahead of him after Denver next week. He's got Minnesota, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and then back to New England. That's my only concern on Aaron Rodgers. But I think overall, I think he's not a bad dart throw. You're just, like Gary said, with Justin Fields and Sam Darnold, who can also rush. You're not getting that rushing upside with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously they have a talented, not just Breece Hall in the backfield, but even Braylon Allen. They love to use him. So I think there's a possibility that the Jets are going to become even more run heavy. So there's definitely that downside to Rodgers. But I just want to throw on the fact that it's so crazy now to see that Aaron Rodgers is scattered across waiver wires and leagues. Like, I feel like
it's so crazy. You've never. I don't think I've ever seen that ever.
I feel like he would have already been retired before that we got to that era of fantasy football, but here we are. It's crazy to see.
Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, our top quarterback waiver wire ads of the week. And Gary, you were just talking about someone on the Jets. Maybe Breece Hall. I don't know if it was Breece Hall. Who is your running back ad of the week?
rookie out of Wisconsin, Braylon Allen. Yeah, that was a great segue right into it, I guess. Just put up just shy of 10 points last week. He's only 46% rostered. But like I had mentioned, the Jets love this guy. I mean, I didn't expect him to get as much use being drafted in the 4th round this past year. But so far, he's gotten some love. Scored a touchdown last week or 2 weeks ago. And every time he touches the ball, I feel like he could break one off. So I think that if you're a guy if you're someone who's down a few guys in your starting lineup and are looking for someone that can randomly break off like a huge play, Braylon Allen could possibly do that because when he gets the ball, like I said, watch out.
Yeah, I actually preached this a couple weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Braylon Allen was doing really, really good, and he was a guy to watch. I think it was last week with Kareem Hunt. I said if you couldn't get Kareem Hunt or you didn't want to get Carson Steele, go for Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is a guy who I want to see succeed in the NFL, but don't want him to take away from Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall. I think he's still a great running back. And again, like you said, 4th round pick. We thought that running backs in the 4th round plus day 3 picks are irrelevant. Clearly, it looks like Braylon Allen is coming into the picture, and he's producing. And if he keeps producing with the running backs being so thin in the NFL, and for fantasy-wise, for sure, he is a guy that I think is also one of my top picks. I mean, when I saw you put that in our doc, it just was great because I just want to see Braylon Allen on the waivers, and I want him. I picked him up this past couple weeks, actually.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. I'll go with my guy with Chuba Hubbard, and it's shocking to talk about Hubbard. To tell me that I'm talking about a guy who was on the Jets, Sam Darnold, who's supposed to be irrelevant now, and a guy who's on the Panthers, who I thought Miles Sanders was supposed to be the starter, but now Chuba is the starter. This guy was amazing. Finishes the RB4 this past week, 27.9 points. He finished double digits the past 2 weeks. He's been a top RB2 in the past 2 weeks, RB24, RB4. And if Andy Dalton stays as the starter, I think sky's the limit for Chuba. I think Andy Dalton knows how to work that offense. I hate to say it for any Bryce Young believers. Bryce Young does not know what that offense is all about.
Yeah.
Personally, in a short and sweet way. I mean, Andy Dalton, 300 plus passing yards. Chuba is getting the passing work too as well. Don't forget, he caught all 5 of his targets. This guy is going to win you leagues, I think, if Andy Dalton continues to stay in the league and stays as a starter for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that take right there. The only problem I have is when Jonathan Brooks comes back or is healthy.
No, he's not.
I think that they're going to want to establish him in the running game, not so much in the receiving game, because I think that that's going to be Chuba's job all day. But Jonathan Brooks is a big, strong back that they took early in the draft for a reason. So I think in terms of establishing a run game, I am nervous for Chuba Hubbard when Brooks does become healthy. However, I do agree in the sense that if Andy Dalton is going to stay the quarterback of the Panthers, he's old. He needs something that's going to get the drive started. And I think that those checkdowns to Chuba Hubbard are definitely a way to go. So as of right now, I do love this pick.
What do you feel on Brooks? Like, do you think this guy could be relevant in the NFL, or do you think he might not be? Okay.
I do. I think I watched him when he was at Texas, and he was really good. And obviously he got hurt, which sucked to see. But yeah, I mean, he's a big, strong, physical guy that I think will work great in any offense. And I feel like we've known the Panthers for a while now to be a pretty run-heavy team. So I think that they wouldn't steer away from that when they get a pretty good draft prospect out of that.
Yeah, I'm the only concern is for Brooks is when he does come back, will he stay healthy? That's my bigger question.
Yeah,
and I think they're not going to try and ease him in. And like they're going to try and ease him in, not put him in right away. Obviously, you mentioned Chuba is going to be the pass down guy, and I agree with that. And I think Brooks is just going to get a slow start into the NFL. We might not see a lot of him until the very, very, very end of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, that's why I say I like this pick right now, and for a few weeks to follow. But like I said, a few weeks after Jonathan Brooks gets introduced to the league, I think Hubbard might be somewhat irrelevant.
So I think what you're saying is Chuba is a trade now candidate if he produces again.
For sure, especially if you hold on to him for another week or two and he does
Balls out.
He dropped 27 points this week. I don't expect him to do that well every week.
Yeah.
If he's dropping 15 points the next 2 weeks, then for sure trade him high.
For sure. Key's pick for the running back position was Cam Akers. He did get 9.9 fantasy points this past week. Joe Mixon was out. He is a guy to, again, monitor this upcoming week if he has to miss time once again due to his injury. Cam Akers, 21 yards. Not bad. Did get some targets, 3 targets, caught one of them. I've never been a Cam Akers believer. And obviously Keith can't defend Cam Akers here, but I'm just not a Cam Akers fan. To me, I'd rather have Dameon Pierce. But
wow,
obviously, I'm not saying right now. I just think Dameon Pierce is better than Cam Akers.
I mean, I feel like we're debating between the worst and the worstest at this point. But no, I absolutely despise them both as football players. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've never been a Cam Akers believer either. I was so upset when the Rams took him over J.K. Dobbins, and I believe they took him over Taylor too in that draft. So I've never been the biggest fan of Cam Akers either, and I actually had to pick him up because I have Mixon and I had Zeke and Zamir White on my bench, and I said, you know what? I am not starting either of those guys. So picked up Akers. Was happy that it gave me a touchdown and close to 10 points, whatever it was. So, I mean, if he's going to do that, like he's a completely serviceable guy, like an RB2, like getting you 10 points, like I'd be completely fine with that. Especially when you look at it in the sense that out of the past couple of weeks, the Vikings run defense has been like top 3 in the league for some odd reason. So for him to, be able to put up 10 points in the Vikings defense definitely shows promise. So I'm especially also in a sense where the Texans got absolutely blown out. So the fact that he was able to put up 10 fantasy points in a game where they lost 34-7 or whatever it was, I'll take it. But I think Keith really just has him here as a streamlined option, just with Mixon continuing to be out.
Yeah, and if Mixon has to keep missing time, someone's going to have to step up there because Texans, they need to start winning. They need to keep winning. Yeah. I don't want them. They're my Super Bowl favorites. Come on, Houston.
Stroud's got to pick it up, honestly. He hasn't. He didn't look great on Sunday.
No, he struggled. It really showed that he struggled.
He did, but I think they'll be okay.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's all we got for running backs. For Chuba Hubbard, my guy, Cam Akers, Keith's guy, and, of course, Gary's Braylon Allen. It's time to go to the wide receivers, and I will start with my guy, who I actually mentioned this past week. I mentioned he was the guy. He was the wide receiver 1 in that offense after Cooper Kupp was gone. Tutu Atwell, 13.3 fantasy points, and he's only 7% owned, I believe, going up against Chicago. Tutu Atwell, he led this team, led the team in receiving on Sunday. Now, don't get me wrong, he didn't get that many targets. He only got 5 targets, but he was productive when he caught the ball. 4 receptions out of those 5 targets, 93 yards. I mean, he still scored you 13 plus points. So that's a guy who I think is going to still lead you to your fantasy. And he's a guy that if you need a wide receiver, he's a guy that can be consistent with Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp obviously already ruled out for week 4, which means Tutu Atwell, sky's the limit again. I think he has a chance to go 15 plus points this upcoming week.
Yeah, and I agreed with this pick last week too. I can't see a world where the guy who comes in and is the automatic wide receiver one would just have downside. So I'm happy with it. I'm a little upset in the Rams offense in the sense that my tight end waiver wire, who got mentioned back to back weeks, hasn't done anything. Colby Parkinson. I mean, I don't know what's up with that, but he gets like 3 targets a game. So I don't really know what's going on there. I dropped him in all the leagues that I have him in for a guy that I believe, I mentioned later on. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, Tutu Atwell, I think he's a great pickup. You had mentioned that he led the team in targets and receptions. What was it, 2 years ago when Cooper Kupp had went down? So maybe we're seeing another situation where that happens again.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see Tolbert and see what he does. But yeah, I mean, Tutu Atwell is a guy who I think is going to be one of the top wide receivers besides Keith's, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I for sure agree with that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Keith's guy?
Yeah. Keith's guy is Juwan Jennings, who I don't even know what happened there. He somehow was scoring a touchdown in every drive for the Niners, I guess. Popped off for close to 50 points, I guess. I was at one of my friend's house watching that game, and he started Juwan Jennings for some odd reason and
what
got paid. So, I mean, that's honestly one of the greatest fantasy performances I've ever seen because, Debo's down, so he's got that upside at least. But I figured that would have catered more towards Ayuk, not, Juwan Jennings. But
I mean, to see Jennings pop off like that, 3 touchdowns, and I mean, who is this guy? Who started this guy? Really, besides your friend, I was shocked to see Juwan Jennings pop off because I thought Brandon Ayuk was going to be the guy. You paid the guy so much money, and now where is he? Where is he? He's nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think Juwan Jennings personally is going to be the top waiver out of the week.
Yeah.
So, did I skip over your guy? I think I mentioned your guy, and then I accidentally tried to.
It's fine. I was talking about Tutu, and I think you thought I was talking about Tolbert, which is totally fine. That will just lead us right into it. My guy is Jalen Tolbert. Kind of surprising. He's put up back-to-back 13-plus point weeks, and he's only 11% rostered. So I don't really expect huge things out of him. But the fact that, CD so far hasn't really done anything outside of week 2. He had that huge touchdown catch. But besides that, I think the other 2 weeks he's only gone for like 5-6 catches for 60 yards. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see that he hasn't really done much outside of that. Brandon Cooks looks okay as well, but Tolbert's, I would assume, the wide receiver 3 there right now, and he's putting up wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 1 fantasy points. So if there's a guy that you need to stream at flex, then he might not be a bad option in favorable weeks.
I think he is the new Michael Gallup of that team.
Don't hate it.
And
I was a big fan of Gallup. So
I was too, honestly. Michael Gallup was a guy that I always loved to just talk about because he would have these weeks where he would just do really good, and then he'd also have those dud weeks, which is always the issue. But I think that's going to be the same problem for Tolbert, and that's my only concern. But I do like Tolbert. I think he's an upcoming guy, and I think he's a guy that might maybe move up the depth chart to wide receiver 2 in front of Brandon Cooks.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, Brandon Cooks is getting up there. It's time to get the new guy, Jalen Tolbert, in there. I like Tolbert. I hope he succeeds in the NFL. Can Dak throw to him? Can Dak win a game? Can the Cowboys win a game? I mean, that's a big concern as well.
Yeah.
Tutu Atwell, Juwan Jennings, and Jalen Tolbert, our 3 wide receiver ads of the week. Let's get into the tight end guys. And Gary, we'll start with your guy. Who is your guy to add for the tight end? Is it Kobe Parkinson?
I wish. No, he just doesn't do anything. I guess he just gets cardio. No, here's a guy that I'm actually I've actually never really
That was
been a
great.
fan of. I've actually never been a fan of this guy, but last week he popped off for 25.7 points. 25.7 points.
Yeah.
He's under 50% rostered. It's Cole Kmet. Like I said, I personally never been a fan of him, but Caleb Williams obviously is. He just had 10 points for almost 100, or 10 catches for almost 100 yards. So I think that if he's sitting there on your waiver wire, then you got to go get him.
You know, it's crazy to think a guy like Cole Kmet could finish as a tight end 48 in week 1, tight end 17 in week 2, and then tight end 2 in week 3. And he is currently sitting as the tight end 3.
3. Yeah.
3. Can you believe that? Currently, I mean, it's the tight end world's always so tough. But currently, if you look at the teams and you look at the games and you look at the players, there's only, I think, 4 or 5 guys who are averaging over 10 points. And these guys are guys that don't even score you a lot of points every week. They just had this monster week. And then all of a sudden, then they just come back down to reality. Right. I mean, like Isaiah Likely, who is a guy who's currently tight end 5. And guess what? He's been irrelevant for 2 straight weeks. Mm-hmm. It's just that one tight end 1 week. That's all it takes. I mean, currently Cole Kmet sitting at tight end 3, like you said. Dallas Goedert, who just popped off this past week, he's kind of been consistent with the tight end 16, tight end 12, and now tight end 1. But again, his tight end 12 and tight end 16 finishes were 6 and 7 points. Mm-hmm. So realistically, you're looking for a guy who can get you at least 8+ points.
Right. Yeah.
And I think if you get 8+ points, that's a win. That's a win.
Yeah, and I think with Cole Kmet's situation, considering the fact that he's got the young, at the moment, struggling quarterback, if you're an offensive coordinator that's just thinking, what's a way I can get my probably non-confident young quarterbacks some easy check down first downs, then normally it's a tight end. So I think Cole Kmet is in a good situation right now.
I'm only concerned is if once Keenan Allen comes back, does Cole Kmet become irrelevant again?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. But at the same time, I'm thinking, is he going to come back? I mean, I feel like we see this story with Keenan Allen every single year.
Please come back.
I mean, it's like I actually just dropped him in one of my leagues because
I was thinking about dropping him this past week.
Sick and tired of it. I'm so sick and tired of it. Last year, it was crazy because 2 years ago, I drafted the stack of Herbert and Keenan Allen. And I was so happy because I thought they were going to pop off. And Keenan Allen played like 2 games the entire year because his hamstring lingered the entire year. I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens this year. I mean, I'm so sick and tired of seeing that red Q next to Keenan Allen's name. So I was like, you know what? Let somebody else deal with the pain. Let someone else just take him. So I don't know. I mean, I would agree with you. If Keenan Allen does come back and plays, then he might be non-existent in the fantasy world. But as of right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Keenan Allen never touches a football field again.
Interesting take right there. I used to be a fan of Cole Kmet. Mm-hmm. And then I became a non-fan of Cole Kmet.
A realist, by the way.
A realist.
Yeah.
I'm still not a fan of Cole Kmet. But if he does this again, he is a guy that I will have to say you need to go and grab, in my opinion.
What do we got here?
Some breaking news. The Panthers are placing wide receiver Adam Thielen on injury reserve because he suffered a hamstring injury he suffered on Sunday. So rather than Thielen coming back sooner, now he's coming back later.
Which sucks because he just caught a 31-yard touchdown, I think it was, on Sunday.
Yeah, but Deontay Johnson season for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, maybe with Andy Dalton. Yeah, I mean, that's literally what it was for me. I didn't draft Deontay once in any of my leagues, and that was just due to the fact that he had Bryce Young at quarterback. But the Red Rifle's slinging it. So, I mean, he might be definitely a sleeper flex guy. So,
For Deontay Johnson?
Yeah.
I could attest to that. I mean, with only if Andy Dalton's the guy who's
Right, exactly.
Can I also just state the fact that the fact check that I did a couple weeks ago with the stat of Andy Dalton throwing for 300 plus or 300, was it 300 plus?
303 tutties, yeah.
Yeah, with four different teams now. Aaron Rodgers is yet to throw for 300 plus yards. Andy Dalton did that in 1 week.
Yeah.
Is Andy Dalton better than Aaron Rodgers?
Is Joe Flacco?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Joe Flacco was such a beast last year. So hyped.
I think it's crazy because like we're looking at like I feel like the world's changing so much, at least like in the fantasy football or just football world in general, because I feel like we give so many guys the benefit of the doubt now. You know, when it's like, yeah, these guys probably are Hall of Famers or, you know, have been good their entire career, but at the same time, they're old now. So it's just like to see them be able to come out and do it. It's like, how many chances can we give these younger guys? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's such a short leash for these young guys. Like Bryce Young, he didn't even last 3 games into the year on his second season. So intrigued to see what's going to happen with Andy Dalton, though, in there. But good shout out on Cole Kmet. I'll go with my guy and Pat Freiermuth. Let the guy loose. Let the Muth go loose. This guy, he's Mr. Consistent. 67% owned this past week. Hopefully, we'll be over 70%, so we won't talk about him again. But this guy has averaged just about 7 points a game. That sounds so bad when you say it out loud. But if you look at the tight end landscape, that's actually really good. To stay consistent like that and score those 7 points a game. I mean, he's getting 4 receptions every single game, Mr. Consistent, over 25 yards per game. Again, this doesn't sound like good numbers, but a tight end that can stay consistent like that, Justin Fields, I mean, he's Gary's guy. If Gary's guy pops off next week, Pat Freiermuth could be a guy that we see go into the end zone. Because he did. He had a target in the end zone. If I do believe he had a target in the end zone. And where there's a will, there's a way for letting the Muth go loose. He's going to score double-digit points this upcoming week. I could be completely wrong. But hey, you know.
I mean, my bias could, I was just going to ask if you could put that up there. Not the second comment, though, because I don't know what that's all about.
Oh, you mean how Fields?
Yeah, what are you talking about, buddy? Oh, come on now. No, Freiermuth. I maybe it's just my bias showing because I hate him. I don't get the hype around Pat Freiermuth. I feel like people, you know, always saying, "Oh, he's a top 6, top 7 tight end." Where? Like where? I don't think he's shown a thing. So maybe this is his year to prove it. But I haven't really seen anything from Pat Freiermuth. Like if he's except for like 3 catches for like 20 yards. So, I mean,
4 catches.
Sorry, whatever it is. But if we're going off of, you know, fantasy, sure, maybe he's a top 20 relevant tight end, but
top 12.
Okay, sure, top 12. Now maybe a top 12 tight end. No, he's moving up. He's moving up in the ranks. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Pat Freiermuth, never have been, but like you said, maybe he's that security blanket for Justin Fields. We're only 3 weeks into the season, so we'll see.
I think there is a lane where we can see him scoring double digits this upcoming week. He's taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who give up the 5th or 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. So just a little stat.
A stat that I would actually like to see is how many times in Pat Freiermuth's career has it gone double-digit points in a fantasy game? I would love to see how many times in his career has he done that.
Well, I can give you a quick little fact that last year he did score double digits in the wild card game, and he scored twice last year. But he did suffer injury. He was going through an injury the whole season, so you kind of got to give that a lost of a season. The year before that, in 2022, he had what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. 8 times.
8 double-digit games.
8 double-digit games. Come at me, Kevin. Let the youth go loose.
Okay, wait. Are they all 10?
No, 12, 12, 15, 15, 15, 10, 12,
okay.
13.
Hey, maybe I stand corrected.
Can we just say that was good enough that season for to be mostly top 10, top 6 tight end?
Okay, maybe I'll stand corrected, but as of right now, I'm going to stand my ground and say that Pat Fryer is trash.
Finishes at 10-8 last year.
Bum.
So just to keep that, just
Bum.
to mention that. Tyler Conklin is Keith's guy.
Love it.
Did you talk about Conklin last week?
I can't remember, but
I know he was on the show at least one point, just like a slight little mention of him.
It might have been me, but all I know is that I started him, and I think our Debbie league, I think it was,
okay,
or one of the leagues that I'm in with you guys. I started him. I think it was against Keith, and he put up like 20 points, and I loved it. I was so happy with it. I feel like every drive he had one like 20-yard catch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean he looks good. I think people had a lot of faith in him this season, and it's showing so far. So I like.
Yeah. 14 points. He was good enough to be tight end 4 this past week. I mean, he's a guy that could definitely go out and go get in the waivers. If Aaron Rodgers, he's not a guy that throws to tight ends a lot. The last time I can remember is Robert Tonyan.
Yeah.
That one season. So keep that out there just to know that he doesn't throw to tight ends that much, but when he does make them relevant in fantasy. I mean, he does have Garrett Wilson, who finally he has thrown a touchdown to a former first-round wide receiver, just to mention that, Aaron Rodgers in his career. And then he's also got former teammate Alan Lazard. So there is room for Tyler Conklin to be relevant week in, week out. He's got favorable matchups this upcoming week with Denver, then Minnesota, and then Buffalo. They're all favorable matchups, 2 tight ends. So that's intriguing to watch. And if he pops off next week, he might be a guy that you definitely have to go get off the waivers.
Yeah.
Pat Fryer, Tyler Conklin, Cole Kmet, our 3 top tight ends to add this upcoming week. Now, it is time for our Thursday night football predictions. Keith is no longer here, of course, this week, but he did give us his prediction. Right now, it's the Cowboys against the Giants. Brutal game to watch. You know what I will be doing? Sleeping. Keith said 28-14 Cowboys, and he is taking the over. Gary, who are you taking?
Wait, you said 28-14?
28-14.
That'll be the under.
Is it?
40.
He did. He took. So that technically is the under. We'll have to fact check him on that if he wanted to make sure it was the under. But
because I'm thinking to myself, how do I strategically do this to where I'm back in the game?
Oh, here we go. Now he's got to play strategic moves.
Well, because the thing is, here everything else besides the point, I would say Cowboys are going to win, and I would also go the over. I'll say Cowboys 30, Giants 14.
Oh my goodness!
That's also the under. 44.
That's
wow.
just
what's going on.
That's just under 40. All right, so I'll tell you what. Before I mention mine, at one point I was like 44 and a half. So that's got to be an over. I went 27-17, and that was added up to 44 as well.
All right, I'm gonna go 31-14. Ends at 45. Locking it. Cowboys.
And you're taking the over.
31-14.
Well, I will be taking the Cowboys, which is a clean sweep here. Cowboys 27-21.
Okay.
Now, we just got to mention the records, of course.
We have to.
Keith did get his first loss because he was wrong last week on the over-under, but he is 5-1 on the year. I'm again once again in the middle, 3-3. And Gary, would you like to say yours? What record you have?
Yeah, and I want to say the same thing I say every week. Okay, I'm 1-5, but again, it's not about how you start; it's about how you finish. We're only in week 3, so we got a lot of ground to cover here. But at the same time, we need some better games to predict because You can't keep having these same predictions to where I just have no shot to get back in the game. Come on now.
Well, Gary, you must know that this is NFL. This ain't college football. Gary, he's got himself a new account. You can go follow him at JD Picks. This guy is a legend with college football betting. You got to go check him out. Again, JD Picks. He is, of course, my great co-host this week that he was able to join. Keith, unfortunately, wasn't able to join this week. He'll be back next week. Go follow him all over social media at SwampDonkey_90. And if you haven't done so already, go use that code SportsTimeHQ on Underdog Fantasy. They're going to match your first deposit up to $100. And again, if you're still looking for a trophy, ring, or belt for your season, for your teams, for your leagues, go to TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. I'm Fernando. I'm your host of SportsTime HQ. We're going to see you next week. Once again, as always, every week, we're here on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll catch you all next week.